The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm breaking across the void. 847 vessels of various sizes and classes spread across space in a formation that spoke of careful planning and long experience with large-scale warfare. At the center of the formation, the battleship Relentless led a core group of heavy warships, while destroyers and cruisers formed protective screens around the flanks. Support vessels and carriers took positions in the rear, ready to provide supplies and fighter support as needed. Admiral Vextar stood on the command deck of his flagship and stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human fleet was larger than many of the invasion forces the Xerian Empire had used to conquer entire star systems. This was not a rescue mission or a diplomatic expedition. This was a full military response, designed to destroy whatever had threatened their missing scout. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "the human fleet is transmitting on all frequencies. They are requesting immediate contact with their missing personnel." "Put them through," Vextar ordered, trying to maintain his composure despite the overwhelming show of force facing his own fleet. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and professional, with the kind of authority that came from years of command experience. "This is Fleet Admiral Kevin Stone of the Human Federation. We are here regarding the disappearance of Lieutenant Jake Morrison, one of our scout pilots. We have reason to believe he is being held aboard one of your vessels." Vextar activated his own communicator. "Admiral Stone, I am Admiral Vextar of the Xerion Empire. Your officer is indeed aboard my ship, where he is being held as a prisoner of war following his illegal entry into our territory." "Admiral Vextar," Stone's voice remained level. "Lieutenant Morrison was on a peaceful exploration mission in unclaimed space. His detention constitutes an act of aggression against the Human Federation. You have 1 hour to release him and withdraw your forces from this area. After that time, we will consider you hostile and respond accordingly." The ultimatum sent a shock through the Xerion command structure. Never in 3,000 years of expansion had anyone dared to give the Empire an ultimatum. The sheer audacity of it was almost incomprehensible to the alien commanders. "Admiral Stone," Vextar replied, struggling to maintain diplomatic protocol, "you are outnumbered. My fleet consists of over 200 vessels, each more advanced than your primitive ships. I suggest you reconsider your position." There was a pause before Stone responded, and when he did, there was something in his voice that made Vextar's scales prickle with unease. "Admiral, you are correct that your ships may be more advanced than ours, but you have made a fundamental error in your calculations. This is not about technology. This is about what happens when you threaten a human being." In his detention cell, Jake Morrison listened to the exchange through the ship's communication system and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because his people had come for him as he knew they would, and sadness because Admiral Vextar paced the command deck of his flagship while reading Commander Zeketh's detailed reconnaissance report. The information contained within disturbed him more than he cared to admit to his subordinates. The Human Federation was not the small, primitive civilization they had expected to find. According to Zeketh's findings, the humans controlled a significant portion of space and possessed military forces that appeared to be both numerous and well-trained. "Admiral," his aide approached cautiously, "the War Council has assembled as you requested. They are waiting for your briefing on the human situation." Vextar nodded and made his way to the council chamber, where representatives of all 12 Xerion species waited. The room buzzed with conversation as various commanders discussed rumors about the mysterious humans and their captured scout. When Vextar entered, the chamber fell silent. "Fellow commanders," Vextar began. "We face an unprecedented situation. Our reconnaissance of human space has revealed a civilization that poses potential challenges to our expansion in this region. The humans control over 50 star systems and maintain substantial military forces throughout their territory." General Crix of the Threx ground forces clicked his mandibles together, a sign of skepticism. "Admiral, surely no primitive species could threaten the combined might of the Zerion Empire. We have conquered civilizations far more advanced than these newcomers." "That is what I believed as well," Vextar replied, "but the evidence suggests otherwise. The humans have organized their entire civilization for warfare. Every world we observed was heavily fortified, every system patrolled by military vessels. This is not a peaceful species that occasionally fights defensive wars. This is a warrior culture that has perfected the art of organized violence." The Nixani representative, Consul Vexani, shimmered with agitation. The human prisoner's mind contained memories of conflicts unlike anything in our experience. His people have developed methods of warfare that prioritize complete destruction of their enemies. They do not seek conquest or subjugation. They seek elimination. This statement caused an uproar among the assembled commanders. Several species representatives began arguing among themselves about the implications of facing an enemy that fought for total victory rather than territorial gain. Commander Thulak of the spiked Vortai species stood and spoke in his harsh voice. "If these humans are as dangerous as you claim, then we should strike immediately before they can organize their defenses. Send the full battle fleet to their territory and crush them before they become a real threat." "I considered that option," Vextar said, "but our intelligence indicates that the humans are already mobilizing their forces. Our reconnaissance ships detected increased military activity throughout their space. They know we are here, and they are preparing for conflict." On the lower levels of the flagship, Jake Morrison sat in his detention cell and listened to the sounds of increased activity throughout the ship. He could hear the heavy footsteps of alien crew members moving through the corridors at all hours, the hum of machinery being brought online, and the distant vibrations of shuttlecraft arriving and departing from the hangar bays. The Zerion Empire was clearly preparing for something, and Jake suspected he knew what it was. His cell door opened, and Admiral Vextar entered, accompanied by 2 Khazari guards. The reptilian commander studied Jake for a moment before speaking. "Human, your people have been busy while you have been our guest. Our scouts report significant military movements throughout your territory. It appears that your federation is preparing for war." Jake looked up from the simple cot where he had been resting. "Are they? Well, that makes sense. When one of our people goes missing, especially a military officer, we tend to take it seriously. We do not like leaving our people behind. Your rescue would require a substantial military force," Vextar said. "Surely your government would not risk a war with the Zerion Empire over one individual, no matter how valued." Jake almost smiled at the Admiral's misunderstanding. "Admiral, I think you have missed something important. My people are not coming to rescue me. They are coming because you took me prisoner. There is a difference." Vextar's yellow eyes narrowed. "Explain this difference, human." "Humans have a simple rule about these situations," Jake said calmly. "If you attack one of us, you have attacked all of us. If you threaten one of us, you have threatened all of us. My government is not mobilizing their forces to save my life. They are mobilizing because you have given them a legitimate reason to do what they do best." "And what is that, human?" "Fight wars and win them," Jake replied. "You see, Admiral, humans are not like other species. We do not fight because we want to. We fight because we are very good at it. And sometimes fighting is the only way to solve a problem. Right now, you are the problem. Meanwhile, in human space, Fleet Admiral Kevin Stone stood on the bridge of the battleship Relentless and reviewed the deployment orders that had arrived from Earth Command. The Human Federation was mobilizing the largest military force in its history, drawing ships and personnel from every sector to form a massive battle fleet. The objective was simple: locate the missing scout Jake Morrison and respond appropriately to whatever had happened to him. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we have confirmation from all squadron commanders. The fleet is assembled and ready for departure. Total strength is 847 vessels, including support ships." Admiral Stone nodded grimly. The human fleet represented decades of military buildup and preparation for exactly this kind of situation. Every ship had been designed and built with the lessons of human military history in mind. They were not the largest or most advanced vessels in the galaxy, but they were crewed by people who understood that wars were won not by superior technology, but by superior determination and tactical skill. "Send the order to all ships," Admiral Stone commanded. "We depart for the target coordinates in 1 hour. Rules of engagement are as follows. We will attempt diplomatic contact with whatever force is holding Lieutenant Morrison. If diplomacy fails, we will secure his release by whatever means necessary. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Captain Amy Rodriguez, commander of the heavy cruiser Defiant, received the orders along with hundreds of other ship commanders throughout the human fleet. She had served in the Federation military for 15 years and had participated in conflicts against pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species. But this was different. This was the first time humanity had faced a potential enemy of unknown capabilities and intentions. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "all weapons systems are fully operational. The crew is ready for combat operations." Rodriguez studied the tactical display showing the massive human fleet as it prepared for departure. Every ship bore the scars of previous battles, testament to humanity's long history of conflict and survival. These were not parade vessels built for show. They were instruments of war, designed and operated by people who understood that sometimes violence was the only language that certain enemies could understand. Back aboard the Xerion flagship, Admiral Vextar received an urgent communication from his long-range sensors. A massive fleet of unknown vessels had been detected approaching the edge of Xerion space. The energy signatures matched those of the human ships his scouts had observed, but the scale was far beyond what anyone had expected. "Admiral," his sensor operator reported with barely concealed alarm, "I count over 800 vessels in the approaching formation. They are maintaining battle formation and appear to be heading directly for our position." Vextar felt a chill run through his scaled hide. The humans had not sent a small rescue force or a diplomatic mission. They had sent what appeared to be their entire military, and they were coming not as negotiators, but as conquerors. In his cell, Jake Morrison heard the alarm signals beginning to sound throughout the alien flagship and knew that his wait was nearly over. Soon, Admiral Vextar and the entire Xerion Empire would learn what happened when someone made the mistake of threatening humanity. The lesson would be thorough, decisive, and permanent. The inside of the alien flagship was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The corridors were wide and curved, with walls that seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that shifted colors as he walked past. His escort consisted of 4 different types of aliens, each one clearly from a different species. The largest was nearly 8 feet tall with reptilian scales and yellow eyes that never blinked. The others included a creature that looked like a giant insect with multiple arms, something that appeared to be made of pure energy contained in a transparent suit, and a small gray being with enormous black eyes. They led Jake through the ship to a large circular room with a high ceiling. In the center was a raised platform surrounded by seats arranged in a semicircle. Each seat was occupied by a different alien, and Jake realized he was looking at representatives of the various species that made up this Xerion Empire. The reptilian Admiral Vextar sat in the largest chair, clearly in command of this meeting. "Sit," Admiral Vextar commanded, pointing to a simple chair in the center of the platform. Jake walked over and sat down, looking around at the assembled aliens with genuine curiosity rather than fear. This seemed to surprise them, as he could see, them exchanging glances and what might have been whispered comments in their various languages. "Human," Admiral Vextar began, his voice echoing in the large chamber. "You are now in the heart of the most powerful military force in this galaxy. Before you sit representatives of 12 different species, each one specializing in different aspects of warfare. The Threx excel at ground combat," he gestured to the insect-like being. "The Nixani control the powers of the mind," he indicated the energy creature. "And my own people, the Khazari, dominate space warfare. Together, we have conquered over 1,000 worlds and defeated every enemy we have ever faced." Jake nodded politely. "That is very impressive, Admiral. You must be proud of what your people have accomplished." The calm response seemed to frustrate several of the aliens. One of them, a being covered in what looked like metal spikes, leaned forward and spoke in a harsh voice. "Do you not understand your situation, human? You are our prisoner. Your life depends entirely on our mercy. Why do you show no fear?" Jake looked at the spiked alien and shrugged. "I suppose I have never seen much point in being afraid of things I cannot control. Fear does not change facts, and it certainly does not help anyone think clearly. Right now, the facts are that you are much stronger than me. You have taken me prisoner, and you want information about my people. Those facts will not change whether I am afraid or not. So I choose not to be afraid." A small alien with blue skin and 4 arms spoke next. "Perhaps fear would teach you proper respect for your superiors. The Xerion Empire has ruled this region for 3 millennia. We have destroyed species that were far more advanced than your primitive federation." "With respect," Jake said, "I do not think humans are primitive. We may not have controlled space for 3,000 years, but we have been fighting wars for much longer than that. We have learned many things about conflict during that time." "Admiral," Vextar leaned forward in his chair, "tell us about these wars, human. What could your people possibly know about warfare that we have not already mastered?" Jake thought carefully about his answer. "We have learned that the most important thing in any war is not the size of your ships or the power of your weapons. It is the determination of your people to keep fighting no matter what happens. Humans have faced extinction many times in our history, and we have always survived because we refuse to give up." The insect-like Threx representative made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Determination is meaningless against overwhelming force. We have heard such claims from countless species before we destroyed them." "Maybe," Jake said, "but I think there is something different about humans. We do not just fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies never want to fight us again. When humans go to war, we do not stop until the threat is completely eliminated." This statement caused a stir among the assembled aliens. Several of them began speaking to each other in their own languages, and Jake could sense that his words, had made them uncomfortable. The energy being called Nixani floated closer to him, its form shimmering with strange light. "You speak of eliminating threats," the Nixani said in a voice that seemed to come from inside Jake's head. "Let us see what your mind truly contains, human. Let us see these wars you claim to know so much about." Jake felt a strange pressure in his head, as if something was trying to push its way into his thoughts. He had heard about psychic aliens in intelligence reports, but this was his first direct experience with one. Instead of fighting the intrusion, he relaxed and let his mind open. If this creature wanted to see human warfare, Jake was happy to show it. The Nixani's form suddenly flickered and changed color. Jake could feel the alien's shock as it encountered the memories of human history that Jake carried with him. Images of ancient battles flashed through both their minds, soldiers charging with swords and spears, armies clashing across muddy fields where thousands died in single days. The alien saw the great wars of human history, the trenches of the First World War where men lived like animals in holes in the ground, fighting over yards of empty land for months at a time. But it was the images of the Second World War that really disturbed the Nixani. The alien saw the firebombing of cities, the nuclear weapons that turned entire populations to ash in seconds, the industrial-scale killing that humans had perfected during that terrible conflict. Jake's mind showed the creature how humans had learned to wage total war, to mobilize entire populations for conflict, to turn their full industrial capacity toward the production of weapons and the destruction of their enemies. The Nixani suddenly pulled back from Jake's mind, its energy form flickering wildly. When it spoke again, its voice was filled with something that might have been fear. "This creature's mind contains horrors beyond imagination. His species has perfected methods of warfare that we have never encountered. They do not simply defeat their enemies, they erase them from existence." The other aliens looked at the Nixani with surprise. Jake noticed that several of them had moved back in their chairs, as if his presence had suddenly become threatening. Despite his complete helplessness, Admiral Vexitar's yellow eyes narrowed as he stared at Jake. "What did you show it, human? What memories could possibly disturb a Nixani warrior?" Jake met the Admiral's gaze calmly. "I showed it the truth about humans, Admiral. We are not like other species. When we fight, we do not fight for territory or resources or glory. We fight for survival, and when humans fight for survival, there are no rules and no limits. We will do whatever it takes to protect our people, no matter how terrible it might seem to others." The chamber fell silent. Jake could see that his words and the Nixani's reaction had changed something in the room. These aliens had expected to find a primitive species that could be easily intimidated or destroyed. Instead, they had found something that frightened even their most powerful psychic warriors. "You are bluffing," said the blue-skinned alien, but its voice lacked conviction. "No species could be as ruthless as you claim." Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "I hope you never have to find out whether I am bluffing or not. But I think you should know that by holding me here, you have already started something that may be difficult to stop. My people will be looking for me, and when humans start looking for something, they usually find it." 3 Xerion scout ships moved through space toward the coordinates they had extracted from the humans' navigation computer. Commander Zekth of the Threx species led the small scouting force, his insect-like form perfectly suited for the cramped confines of the fast scout vessels. His orders were simple: Locate this human federation, assess their military capabilities, and report back to Admiral Vextar without being detected. The journey took them 12 days through hyperspace, and when they finally emerged in what the human had called the outer territories of his people's space, Commander Zeketh was surprised by what he found. The system contained 3 planets, 2 of which showed clear signs of human habitation. Orbital stations surrounded both worlds, and the scanner readings indicated substantial industrial activity on the surface of each planet. "Commander," reported his sensor operator, "I am detecting multiple human vessels in this system. At least 40 ships of various sizes are currently moving between the planets and the orbital stations." Zekth studied the tactical display. The human ships were smaller than Zerion vessels, but they moved with purpose and coordination that suggested a well-organized military force. More concerning was the number of them. If this was just one system among many, the Human Federation might possess a much larger fleet than anyone had expected. "Take us closer to the 3rd planet," Zekth ordered. "Use passive sensors only. I want to know what these humans are doing here." As they approached the world the humans called New Denver, Zekth began to understand that he was looking at something unprecedented. The planet's surface was covered with cities, but these were not ordinary civilian settlements. Every structure seemed to have been built with defense in mind. The buildings were low and heavily reinforced, connected by underground tunnels that formed a vast network across the entire continent. "Commander," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from one of the human vessels. They have detected our presence." A female human voice came through the speakers, speaking in clear, unaccented Galactic Standard. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Lisa Park of the Human Federation destroyer Iron Will. You are approaching restricted space. State your business immediately or alter course and leave this system." Zekth was impressed despite himself. The human captain had not made threats or demanded surrender. She had simply stated facts and given clear options. This suggested a level of military professionalism that the Zerian Empire rarely encountered among the primitive species they usually dealt with. "Send no response," Zekth ordered. "Continue scanning. I want complete tactical analysis of their defensive positions." The Iron Will was a sleek vessel about half the size of a Zerion destroyer, but Zekth's sensors revealed that it was heavily armed for its size. Every available space on the hull seemed to be occupied by weapon systems, armor plating or defensive shields. This was clearly a ship built for one purpose: fighting and winning battles. "Commander," his sensor operator said urgently, "the human ship is powering up its weapon systems. They are also broadcasting some kind of alert signal to the other vessels in the system." Zeketh watched as the other human ships began changing course, moving to intercept his small scout force. Within minutes, his 3 ships were facing 8 human vessels of various sizes, all of them armed and clearly ready for combat. Captain Park's voice came through the communicator again, still calm, but with an edge of steel. "Unknown vessels. You have 30 seconds to respond to my previous transmission, or you will be considered hostile. This is your final warning." "Take us out of weapons range," Zekth ordered. "But continue scanning. I want to know everything about these humans before we leave." As his ships retreated to a safe distance, Zekth studied the intelligence his sensors had gathered. What he found disturbed him greatly. The planet New Denver was not just defended by military installations. The entire civilian population seemed to be prepared for war. The underground tunnel networks connected every major city, allowing the rapid movement of people and supplies during an attack. The orbital stations were not just industrial facilities, but heavily armed fortresses that could provide covering, fire for the surface. Most troubling of all, Zeketh's deep-range scanners had detected similar defensive preparations on dozens of other human worlds throughout this region of space. This was not a species that occasionally fought wars when necessary. This was a civilization that had organized its entire society around the assumption that war was inevitable and must be prepared for at all times. "Commander," his intelligence officer reported, "I have been analyzing the human communication networks. They are using military-grade encryption for all civilian communications, and their industrial output shows clear signs of wartime production levels. These people are not at peace, sir. They are preparing for a major conflict." Zekth felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. "Who are they preparing to fight?" "Unknown, sir. But based on the scale of their preparations, they expect to face an enemy of considerable power. The defensive positions I have identified could withstand a prolonged siege by a force many times larger than their own." As Zekth's ships moved deeper into human space, they encountered more evidence of humanity's military readiness. Every system they visited contained multiple worlds with similar defensive preparations. Human patrol ships moved constantly through space, following patterns that ensured complete coverage of all approaches to their territory. The humans had clearly learned to think in terms of three-dimensional warfare, with overlapping fields of fire and mutual support between different defensive positions. In the Kepler system, Zekth encountered something that shook his confidence even further. A massive human battleship was conducting what appeared to be a training exercise with a squadron of smaller vessels. The ship was called the Relentless, and it was larger than anything in Zeketh's scouting force. But size was not what impressed the Threk's commander. It was the way the human ships moved together, like parts of a single organism, each vessel supporting the others in complex maneuvers that suggested years of practice and coordination. "Commander," his communications officer said suddenly, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Vextar. He wants an immediate report on our findings." Zekth activated the quantum communicator and waited for the connection to stabilize. When Admiral Vextar's image appeared on the screen, Zekth could see that the Khazari commander was impatient for information. "Report, Commander Zekth. What have you learned about this human federation?" Zekth chose his words carefully. "Admiral, the humans are not what we expected. Their military capabilities appear to be substantial, and their defensive preparations suggest a level of strategic thinking that rivals our own. I estimate they control at least 50 star systems, with major industrial facilities and defensive installations on most inhabited worlds." Admiral Vextar's eyes narrowed. "Are you telling me that this primitive species poses a threat to the Zerion Empire?" "Admiral, I do not think these humans are primitive. Their technology may be less advanced than ours in some areas, but their approach to warfare is sophisticated and well-organized. They have clearly been fighting large-scale conflicts for a considerable time, and they have learned from their experiences." There was a long pause before Admiral Vextar responded. "Continue your reconnaissance, Commander. I want detailed information about their fleet strengths and defensive capabilities. And Zekth, do not be detected. If the humans discover our presence, it could complicate our negotiations with their captured scout." The transmission ended, and Zeketh stared at the tactical display showing human military positions throughout this region of space. He had spent his entire career serving in the Zerion Empire's forces, participating in the conquest of dozens of species and the subjugation of hundreds of worlds. Never before had he encountered an enemy that seemed so thoroughly prepared for the kind of total warfare that the Empire was capable of waging. As his ships continued their reconnaissance mission, Zeketh began to suspect that Admiral Vextar's Negotiations with the human prisoner might be more important than anyone had realized. The Xerian Empire had always won its wars through overwhelming superiority in technology and numbers, but the humans seemed to have prepared for exactly that kind of conflict, and they showed every sign of being ready to fight it. Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat of his small scout ship and watched the stars through the front window. The Swift Arrow was not a big ship, but it was fast and quiet, perfect for his job of finding new worlds for humans to live on. He had been flying alone for 3 weeks now, checking planets in systems that no human had ever seen before. Most of the worlds he found were too hot or too cold, or had no air that humans could breathe, but that was normal in this kind of work. The computer made a soft beeping sound, and Jake looked at the screen. There was something big moving toward him from behind a nearby moon. Jake frowned and adjusted the sensors to get a better look. What he saw made him sit up straight in his chair. It was a ship, but not like any human ship he had ever seen. This one was huge, maybe 50 times bigger than his little scout vessel, and it had a strange design with curved metal surfaces that seemed to flow like water. Before Jake could decide what to do, more ships appeared. Then more. Within minutes, he counted at least 20 massive vessels surrounding him in a wide circle. Each one was different from the others, with unique shapes and colors. But all of them were clearly built for war. Jake could see weapon ports along their hulls and energy shields shimmering around their surfaces. His communication system crackled to life, and a voice spoke in perfect English, though the accent was strange and the tone was cold. Unknown vessel. You have entered Xerian Empire space without permission. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to flee or fight will result in your immediate destruction. Jake looked at the massive ships around him and almost smiled. Fight? His little scout ship had no weapons at all, just sensors and communication equipment. As for fleeing, these alien ships probably had engines that could catch him easily. He was trapped. But somehow he did not feel afraid. Instead, he felt curious about these aliens who spoke his language and claimed to own this part of space. He pressed the communication button and spoke in a calm, friendly voice. Hello there. My name is Lieutenant Jake Morrison of the Human Federation. I mean no harm to you or your people. I am just exploring this area looking for planets that might be suitable for colonies. I did not know this space belonged to anyone. Could you please tell me who I am speaking with? There was a long silence before the alien voice returned, sounding surprised. You are human? We have no record of your species. You will surrender your vessel immediately and submit to questioning. This is not a request. Jake leaned back in his chair and thought for a moment. These aliens clearly expected him to be scared, but fear had never been something that controlled Jake's actions. During his years in the Human Federation military, he had faced pirates, rebel forces, and hostile environments, always keeping his cool under pressure. This situation was certainly unusual, but it was still just another problem that needed to be solved. I appreciate your position, Jake said into the communicator, but I cannot surrender my ship to you. I am on a peaceful mission for my government, and I have done nothing wrong. If you wish to talk, I am happy to do so, but I will need safe passage afterward to return to human space. Any hostile action against me would be considered an act of war against the Human Federation. The response came quickly this time, and Jake could hear anger in the alien voice. You dare to threaten the Xerian Empire? You are one small ship against our entire fleet. Your arrogance will cost you your life. I am not threatening anyone, Jake replied calmly. I am simply stating facts. Humans take a very serious view of attacks on our people, especially our military personnel. If something happens to me here, my government will want to know why. They will send ships to investigate, and if they discover I was harmed without cause, they will respond accordingly." Another long silence followed. Jake used the time to study the alien ships more carefully. Their technology seemed advanced, possibly more advanced than human technology, but Jake had learned long ago not to judge a military force by its equipment alone. The best weapons in the galaxy were useless if the people using them lacked the will to fight or the knowledge of how to fight effectively. Finally, a different voice came through the communicator, deeper and with more authority. "Human, I am Admiral Vextar of the Khazari Naval Command. You speak of your Federation as if it has power in this region of space. We have controlled these systems for over 3,000 years. No species has ever dared to challenge our authority here. What makes you think your people are any different?" Jake considered his answer carefully. "Admiral Vextar, I do not know anything about your empire or your history in this region. I am just a scout doing my job. But I do know something about humans. We are a peaceful people when we are left in peace, but we are very dangerous when threatened. We have been fighting wars among ourselves for thousands of years, and we have learned to be very good at it. We do not start fights, but we always finish them." "You speak brave words for someone who is completely helpless, Admiral," Vextar said. "Perhaps you would be more honest if you were brought aboard my ship where you could see the full power of the Zarion Empire." Jake thought about this proposal. Going aboard an alien warship was obviously dangerous, but it might also be his only chance to learn about these people and their capabilities. If he was going to die anyway, he might as well gather information that could somehow be useful to humanity later. "I accept your invitation, Admiral," Jake said, "but I want to make something clear. I am not surrendering to you. I am accepting your offer to talk. There is a difference." Admiral Vextar seemed amused by this distinction. "Very well, human. We will see how long your courage lasts when you understand what you are truly facing. Prepare your ship for docking. Any attempt to escape or send messages will result in the destruction of your vessel." Jake began shutting down his ship's systems, but he made sure to activate a small emergency beacon that would transmit his location back to human space. It would take months for the signal to reach the nearest human outpost, but at least his people would eventually know where he had gone and what had happened to him. As the alien tractor beam pulled the swift arrow toward the massive flagship, Jake looked out at the alien fleet one more time. The ships were impressive, no doubt about that. But Jake had seen impressive enemies before. What mattered was not the size of the weapons, but the hearts of the people who carried them. Soon he would learn what kind of people these aliens really were, and they would learn what it meant to face a human who refused to be intimidated.